Rob, let's start at the top. It's been a foregone conclusion Alabama and Clemson is going to be 1-2. How would you describe the gap in the room from the voting, the listing measures, and the ranking measures, the gap between number 1 and number 2 right now?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of conversation around both those teams. And when you look at them at this point, they're complete teams. They're very strong on offense and very strong on defense. And as you look at the last couple of weeks, Alabama with 2 consecutive shutouts, which certainly impressed the committee when you add that to their efficient offense. And then you look at Clemson and how their defense played on the road at Boston College last weekend. You know, the only score was a special team score. So, still 1-2 at this point through week 11.
Is there a gap between 1 and 2? Is Clemson pushed to overtake 1?
You know, again, we spend a lot of time talking about it. I don't know that we put a definition around the gap, but when you load up the metrics, they're both top 10 offense, top 10 defense. But at this point, everybody has Alabama 1 and Clemson 2.
Okay, so behind that now, is there a bigger gap and a more significant one between those 2 teams and the other teams in the top 5 or 6?
Well, I don't know that we put a measurement on the gap. You know, when we go through the voting processes, we do them in the 3 categories by threes. When you look at Notre Dame, again, we see a team that took care of business this week with a backup quarterback and a strong defense. And then Michigan's had 2 consecutive weeks of winning 42-7 with the number 1 defense in the country and an offense that continues to improve. And then you look at Georgia the last 3 weeks with what they've been able to do after losing to LSU. You know, again, we see a strong defense, and an offense that's led by Jake Fromm that continues to make progress.
What you haven't seen is a strong defense from Oklahoma. You see a championship-level offense, it would appear, but the defense has struggled. It was a couple of years ago that a former committee member said that was a thing the committee couldn't get past. And they didn't feel like Oklahoma had a championship-level defense at that time, and it kind of kept them out of consideration. How would you describe the way Oklahoma's evaluated as it pertains to the way they're playing defense right now?
Obviously, we're very aware that they have one of the most dynamic offenses in the country, a great quarterback, lots of great skill position players, but we're very aware that they're having defensive struggles, and that continues to be a deficiency and something that goes into the evaluation.
When you look at teams sitting behind LSU, and LSU is the 2-loss team that's sitting there ahead of some of the 1-loss teams, how much weight do you anticipate the evaluation process will take winning rivalry games, winning championship games potentially, as teams like Ohio State, teams like West Virginia, Washington State, Oklahoma, all will have the opportunity to do?
Well, as you know, we don't project, of course. We're only dealing with the results through week 11. And when you look at those teams, you see, some really good teams. Washington State, West Virginia, somewhat similar. Great quarterbacks who are leading offenses and improved defenses, and they're just finding a way to win games. And then Ohio State, again, is finding a way to win games. When you look at what Ohio State did last week, the combination of special teams and defense and how they kept Michigan State pinned in to find a way to win, that's why those teams are 8, 9, and 10 right now.
How is the committee looking at UCF as it pertains to whether they're in the evaluation process with some of the upper echelon teams? Let me put it to you this way, Rob. How many listing steps does it take before UCF gets on the board?
Well, I mean, they've been 12, and now they're up to 11 this week. Very powerful offense, very aware of what their quarterback can do. But in the room, you can't avoid the fact that the strength of schedule is an issue when you start to line them up with some of these other teams. So that is a part of the conversation.